Good evening. We have tonight with us two international analysts, Russel Woodrige and Vincent Yanne, who are going to present a debate on the common market. We never did a debate before here on the French-American TV, but we're going to do it tonight, and then if it works out, we'll do it again. So, Vincent, welcome to the French-American television program.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you here.
Pleasure to be here.
Russell, welcome back again.
Thank you.
So what we're going to touch on tonight is basically the common market, which means we are going to this time analyze the viability of the common market with other countries and within the countries of Europe. Is that correct?
It's probably what the closest explanation of what we're going to be doing is.
Okay, maybe we're going to start about talking about the different countries. Can you name them, basically?
Oh, I hate it when you ask these kinds of questions.
Okay.
The 12 European, Western European economies
to give an introduction.
Are the countries that have gone to make up the European Common Market, what we refer to as the European Economic Community. To this program, obviously, the most important of which is the French, the
yes,
nation of
we will
France.
concentrate on the few French.
They have come together over the past 25 years or so to form an economic community as opposed to what we've seen in the past as independent nations all striving for various places within the world economy. What is happening today, we see, with the upcoming 1992, is a creation of an even more unified Europe than...
And you are in favor of this?
I
Is
believe,
that correct?
I believe that what you'll find is that both Vince and I are in favor of that.
Of the idea.
Of the idea of a centralized or a singular Europe. Where the differences come in is in my hopeful optimism. I think it's going to work fairly well when it comes to bringing together, because Europe has come to a point, has grown to a point where it sees that the needs of the many are going to outweigh the needs of the one. And I think that's what we're seeing today.
And you, Vincent, you see a few problems that might arise when it becomes officially...
Well, I think it's going to be a very, very difficult enterprise for these 12 nations to come up with uniform policy in a future environment that none of us really know what will occur.
Yeah, well, we know a little bit since the United States was divided and then became one, so we already know that it happened before.
Well, there have been numerous attempts for countries to form either economic or political coalitions.
Yes.
Many of them have passed on, and
so the United States is the most successful?
yes, but its particular circumstances of how it occurred were very, very different from what is, modern-day Europe.
Yeah, because the United States were...
It was 200 years ago. The states of the United States did not have tremendous historical depth
like
and
European
history.
countries.
And for the most part, they came about roughly at the same time, and they had similar problems, so that there was a great deal of benefit and ease for them coming together compared to modern Europe.
So what kind of problem do you foresee? I mean...
Well, number one, we're seeing Europe, this new level of integration occurring at a time when the world economy has been moving forward very positively. There have not been many recessions over the past 6 or 7 years. Economic growth has been steady. We have not seen how this will occur in a situation where there's a sudden economic recession, worldwide recession, similar to what occurred in 1980-81. And
do you think it might happen in 92? Is that it? I mean,
well, there's economists are known for being somewhat pessimistic, and it would seem that there's every reason why it might occur.
Are you also an economist? No, a little bit.
Well, my training is in economics and political economics.
Yes.
So I am basically, I have a pessimistic side, which is...
So Russell, you possibly don't have that pessimistic attitude because you're not an economist?
Well, as with Vincent, my background is political and economic analysis as well. I do tend to look towards the human factor far more than a traditional economist would. I look at politics and culture and the way the parts that they play, and I try to throw in a healthy amount of
Yeah.
psychological
But don't you
analysis
think
as well.
that between nationals there will be some kind of conflict? I mean, they might not like to deal with some kind of nationals, or maybe they might have some prejudice against some countries, like it happens in here in the United States.
Well, of course, whenever you're dealing with human beings,
Yes.
you're going to have conflict. Conflict is something that happens at all levels
Yes.
through the human condition, whether from children on the playground to nations going to war. Conflicts arise during the conduct of human affairs. So to say that something is not going to work
Yes.
because the French will not be able to get along with the Germans, and the Germans will not be able to get along with the British, and the British won't be able to get along with the Spanish, I think that is, to use a biblical expression, gagging at gnats and swallowing camels.
And you don't think you think that there's some truth to this? You think the British will integrate people from Spain, for example, and from?
They've managed to integrate some of their Commonwealth people from lesser developed countries with some modest success.
Yes, I mean they accepted some refugees.
Right.
Very, very difficult. I mean,
I think it's a very difficult proposition. There's already high unemployment in almost all of the EC countries compared to the United States.
It's over 10% everywhere. Yes.
And that the potential for jealousy of people coming in and having jobs that local people do not.
So nobody will be national anymore. Everybody will be a European.
I think that is very premature.
They're already giving people European passports, like I mentioned.
Well, we can give you a name or we can give you a passport, but what happens in your heart and mind are vastly different. Yes.
And that's what your objection is.
That's part of my objection.
Yes.
My other main objection is that what we see happening in the countries that are coming together are roughly based on the post-war political world,
Yes.
which is divided into two parts, approximately, the United States and the Soviet Union. And what we have is a time of extreme change in the East, a time of
It might take a generation then.
Oh, we're looking at a century or more of,
before
of
everybody
real
forget
honest
about-
before they would begin to forget
Really?
about their own
a century?
national,
I
or
think
at least.
one generation will be enough, no? I mean-
If the United States is a model, there are still people in this country who fight the Civil War
Oh, yeah?
in their hearts,
Really?
that it did not end, that it still goes on.
Not the children. I mean, they forgot, I hope.
Oh, no, there's an education that continues, that carries on. Traditions and memories are almost impossible to end.
What do you think about that? I mean, you
Well,
think,
my opinion on that particular subject is that it goes back to the idea of, in this country, when each state has its own right to be whatever it wants to be, there is an indomitable spirit of people from the western states that is extremely difficult for people in the East to deal with.
still no. I mean,
Even today, there are always particular ethnic, particular national, particular individual traits that one collective group of people carry with another, and therefore they are constantly going to be dealing with this issue. It has gone on in this country for 500 years.
but it goes
It's
on
going to
like
go
between
on
Ireland and England. I mean, and it's in the same land. And
exactly.
the same language. and
The same type of thing. There are always going to be problems between people.
Right, for
And-
religion or for
And
national.
1992 is not going to change that. There are going to continue to be problems between the French and the people from Belgium.
Don't you think that because people are more educated, they're more likely to, than 200 years ago, they're more
we're
likely
true.
to better, we're
I-
more civilized, right?
I don't necessarily believe that that
Yeah.
kind of civilization or civilized behavior is directly related to education.
Oh.
I don't think that, I think we're getting off of the issue
Yeah.
to go down that particular particular road. What has happened is the 12 economies of Europe, the 12 Western economies, have come together and have said that we have 12 small economies, none of which are going to be able to deal in a global economy that where there are large actors.
Yes.
We have Japan, which is a huge economy. We have the United States,
yeah, you yourself
which is a huge
mentioned
market.
Japan, yes.
The United States is a huge market and a huge economic competitor. What the Europeans have seen is that if they continue to function
Yes.
based on the fact that the French are not only competing with the United States and Europe, but they're or rather Japan, they are going to have to continue to compete with Belgium. They're going to continue to compete with Italy.
So
if that continues, if that type of petty competition continues, Europe will no longer be able to affect economic operations on this planet. What will have to happen for them to be able to compete
Yes.
is for them to unify in some form of loose confederation to begin with, which is, I think, what we're seeing, an economic order to begin with, and then ultimately a federal system. But when we start talking about
some countries are behind and some are ahead, and that's a problem.
And that's a very important issue. These are not equal actors.
Yes.
And we're looking at a wide range of different
Like
economies
we talked
with
about
different
they're
priorities.
producing, like we said, the apples. Some countries might produce tons of apple for, let's say, $10 or $100, and some might produce it for much more.
The conflicts of, the efficient producer versus the less efficient producer will have political outcomes as they lobby their national governments to attempt to change rules, to look for different advantages.
With the price, yes.
There is so much to be negotiated, so many interactions that have to go on over all this variety of products, about the variety of different competitors outside, how it's going to affect the man on his farm or the factory worker in France. No one knows at this time.
But it might help, in a way, what he says, it might help the countries that are behind. So they won't have to pay, for example, $100 for a pair of jeans anymore. They'll pay the price they pay, like in France, maybe $20 for a pair of
Well, what
jeans.
usually happens in situations like this is that
It will help out the countries behind, right?
There will be many, many helpful and beneficial factors from
Yes.
this, but there are going to be these surprises that no one is anticipating at this.
Like?
The fact that they are surprises means that I can't tell you what they will be.
No, I mean, would you think they'll be about language?
Language is an issue. The fact that there's no common currency at this time is a tremendously important issue.
Yes, we all
what
have
you
the
see
same
is
dollar.
People
Converting still.
looking to make their advantage,
Yes.
just as the United States has done by lowering the value of the dollar in order to sell their products. So there's going to be, within this economic agreement, there's going to be
That's a
all
very good
kinds
point.
of
Do you
jockeying.
think they'll have a common currency?
Well, I think that
They might get to it, yeah.
I think that a common currency and a federal banking system, it really is in the same area of
Yeah.
discussion as the European national of people thinking of themselves as Europeans first and French second. I think it's something that we really don't need to be talking about now.
Right.
It's an eventuality that's going to have to happen.
Yes.
It will help Europe to be more competitive if they have a single currency once this begins.
Yeah.
But right now, there are problems that we can deal with at this level that I think take precedent in our discussion as opposed to the common currency question.
Well, I think the currency question may be the most important of all so far. We've watched the world over the past 40 years more often than I care to think about not be able to deal with the currency issues between countries. We've watched international inflations occur as different countries jockey for advantage.
Yes.
And I don't see any reason why this further union of these countries is going to improve what has been impossible to do in the past.
The French might want all the 12 countries to have French francs.
Well,
The British
already in dealing in certain markets, and there is a currency market in Europe for the European currency unit, which is a basket of currencies, a basket of interest rates
Yeah.
Each
Which one
at
is the best?
at a
You gotta pick the
specific
best
rate.
one, yeah.
Well, you don't pick in the ECU. You don't pick the best one.
What
you do is you place each currency at a level against the other that is consistent, and then the ECU is given an interest rate based on the
Only if
the other
things
the
have the
rest
same
of the
value in
currency.
all the countries. Well, things.
Well, that would be the nature of this whole exercise, is to equilibrate different items across different countries, so
Yes.
that an apple here is going to be the same price in Great Britain as it is in
Yeah.
France. The only thing will be seasonal variations, like there are as market, the produce
Here.
changes. I think the currency issue is not so much a matter of apples and oranges, but
What is it?
it's an indication of nationhood. Nations are almost define themselves in two really important ways: control of their currency and control of their military actions.
Yeah, I cannot imagine, for example, the French give up the French franc to accept, for example, the English pound.
But as I have said, when you're currently you're dealing with the European currency unit, which is called an ECU,
Yeah.
in certain transactions, you're not giving up
Anything.
You are buying into something else.
Okay.
It's, as I've said
There'll be-
all along,
Oh,
that
yeah,
there are
the
12
compromise
individual
on each side,
nations.
yes.
There are 12 individual nations
Yes.
coming together, and the whole is going to be greater than the sum of the parts.
For example, if one country give up something, they might want something in exchange. Let's say France give up their status as, like I said, the world largest provider of arms, and they might give up that title for a compromise that they'll become maybe they'll get another things in exchange. I mean, they might.
The entire nature of this agreement is going to be compromise.
Everybody, give and
in
take. So
every level.
Yes.
And it's going to be determined by the political capacity of each one of these countries
Yeah.
to present an external face that's consistent among its member countries,
Yeah.
and then on the other hand be able to go home and face their own public,
yeah.
and how they're going to be able to adjust the public pressures that they are receiving and translate that into a national action amidst their contemporaries is going to be very interesting and difficult.
Of all the 12 countries, which country you think will have the hardest time? I mean, would you think it's the one that are ahead or the one that are behind?
I think the most reluctant countries will be those that are in the
Ahead.
best position.
Ahead, yes.
And that would make
Because they
Germany
have-
probably one of the single most difficult issues within this entire context.
Yeah.
Number one, because it's a divided country, and the politics of Eastern Europe versus Western Europe are changing.
But only West
moment-
Germany is in it, right?
Only West Germany is in
So
it
we're
now.
not talking about the other one yet.
Well, you can't, we can do that.
What would be
But
the
we
requirement
must
for another country to go in?
That would be subject to infinite debate.
Cross-
Exactly.
examination.
The European Parliament would be the people who decide,
If they want-
who would accept anyone, one of their Eastern European fellows. I think, however, that
You see,
the
you do
Eastern
see
European, the Eastern European question
Yeah.
and the question of the divided Germany, a unified, singular Europe
yeah,
is going to stabilize that issue, because a powerful, it's been proven with American foreign policy that when you are negotiating
United.
with the Eastern Bloc,
Yes.
okay, whether it be the Soviet Union or the Warsaw Pact, if you debate with them from a position of strength,
yes,
it is far better
for all of them.
for all of them than presenting 12 different fronts. Germany on its own cannot really fairly negotiate with a tremendous momentum that the Soviet Union and the Eastern Bloc have behind it.
And also they'll have the same defense, probably, which will save them a lot of money.
Well, I think
No?
that's another
Will they have a lot of
another
the same
all issue
defense?
together.
I'm not sure. What I do see in this line is that we're going to start seeing transnational coalitions occurring at very different levels
Yeah.
within this group. And when Mr. Le Pen speaks to his nationalist audience,
Yes.
he may well start addressing himself to that same audience in Great Britain, that same audience in Germany.
And that'll be
you're going to start
national TV?
seeing
Yeah, that would be great.
these fascinating new coalitions
Yes.
amidst political groups in each country.
That will be
And
able to
no
reach
one,
other countries.
No one has dealt with that yet. We do not
Yes.
have any idea of how that's going to affect either the economics or the politics of Europe itself, and how it's going to relate to the United States, Japan, and the Eastern
And we'll have
countries.
probably 20 TV channels that will reach all of.
Oh, it should be exciting.
There
Nothing
will
but
be,
exciting.
It's, as I said, the possibilities, I think, far
great.
outweigh
The problems
the
that-
problems that could arise.
I come out as a curmudgeon if I
Yes,
say otherwise.
But you
But I
think
do
we should-
believe that we have not even begun to see or think through the results of what is
Do you
about
think
to
there'll be any
occur.
bloodshed in certain countries?
Well, it may be in soccer,
Well,
Yeah, the football stadiums will continue to burn.
right? And it's very possible, we've already seen it.
Yes.
And I, as an analyst, take that very seriously.
Okay.
I believe that popular phenomenon, things actually happening on the street, on the ground,
Yes.
are very important as symbols of how people are going to react in the future, the models they're going to use in their minds when they think about these various relationships. And it does not bode well that just at the playing field these kinds of things can occur.
Okay. Well, it seems that we have touched on a few things. We might touch on others later, but thank you both of you for giving your view on the subject matter. But I think in the overall, I would go for his side, because you got to be positive more than negative in all aspects of of life, and I do understand though that there might be problems between ethical people from different backgrounds having to deal with each other. So thank you very much, both of you. And this was Vincent Yanne and Russel Woodrige from who talked about the the European Economic Community. Thank you very much, both of you.
Thank you.
Hey, that was great.
I cannot do
Yeah,
that.
was fun.